Tonight, a fresh outpouring of anguish and anger as unrest sweeps Israel. Hundreds of thousands take to the streets as the family of an American hostage shares their heartbreak in a final goodbye to their son.
I will love you and I will miss you every single day.
The mounting international pressure on Israel's prime minister to accept a deal. The political push to win over workers this Labor Day as a strike by Air Canada pilots looms. Trapped on a via train.
We started losing our patience. I mean, we've been 8 hours on the train.
The new lesson plan for students and cell phones as kids return to class. Plus, a courageous cat on the mend.
You don't see an animal that's been shot every single day.
The survival story of a fearless feline saved by his community.
It's just so sweet.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone, and good to be back with you on this Labor Day Monday. We begin tonight with the growing outrage in Israel tonight and the mounting pressure on Israel's prime minister to accept a ceasefire deal. Protesters took that plea right to the gates of Benjamin Netanyahu's Jerusalem residence tonight, Israel's most powerful trade union ordering a general strike. Hundreds of thousands taking to the streets. Tensions spiraling after 6 young hostages were killed by Hamas, including American Hersh Goldberg Polin, whose heartbroken father said he hoped his son's death would signal a turning point.
Maybe, just maybe, your death is the stone, the fuel that will bring home the remaining 101 hostages.
Netanyahu, however, remains defiant, even in the face of new criticism from the U.S. president. And the U.K. today suspending exports of some weapons to Israel over a, quote, clear risk they could be used to break international humanitarian law. Israel responding by saying it was, quote, deeply disheartened. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
Grief and heartbreak in Israel today as thousands gathered to mourn Israeli-American hostage Hersh Goldberg Polin.
Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you're free.
Goldberg Polin, one of 6 hostages found dead in an underground tunnel in Gaza this weekend. His family helped lead the push to free hostages held by Hamas since October 7th.
How sorry I am that we didn't protect Hersh on that dark day. How sorry I am that we failed to bring him home.
Here and across Israel today, there is growing anger, too, directed at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who today faced some of the harshest criticism yet from his American ally.
Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Bibi is prioritizing his own political interests at this point.
Accusations Netanyahu angrily dismissed today.
We're asked to make concessions? What message does this send Hamas? It says, kill more hostages, murder more hostages, you'll get more concessions. The pressure internationally must be directed at these killers, at Hamas, not at Israel.
Hundreds of thousands took to the streets in Israel for a second straight day. Amidst growing government opposition, Israelis furious over the failure to secure a ceasefire deal to release hostages.
This country, these people, our freedom, our values, he's willing to sacrifice everything so that he can remain on his chair.
One of the largest protests since the start of the war, part of a general strike called by Israel's largest labor union, shutting down sectors of the economy, highways, and Israel's airport for hours before a court order put a stop to it.
Now, today, Washington described new urgency in getting a hostage release deal done. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the next few days will be critical. Omar?
All right, Jeremy, thank you. More than 80,000 children have been vaccinated against polio in Gaza after the first case in 25 years was recently detected there. Despite limited pauses in fighting, safety is still a concern.
We don't have guaranteed safety to people, and we really need that to reach all the children.
The goal is to vaccinate 640,000 in all. That's the vast majority of kids under 10 years old. Meanwhile, Israel continued its raid on the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. Israel says it's killed 14 militants in Jenin and arrested 25. Palestinian health officials say 29 people have been killed, including 5 children. The war in Gaza has become a key issue in the U.S. presidential race. This evening, U.S. President Joe Biden joined Vice President Kamala Harris on the campaign trail.
Ask you, are you ready to fight? Yeah! Are you ready to win? Yeah! Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris, our next president of the United States of America?
It was the first joint appearance since Harris replaced Biden as the Democratic nominee. The pair appealing for union support at a joint Labor Day rally in battleground Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump is expected for a town hall midweek. Canadian political leaders are also courting votes from unions, seizing on the frustration many are feeling over the cost of living. Here's CTV's Colton Prail.
Thank you. My pleasure. A battle is waging in Winnipeg and across the country for the votes of Canadian workers.
I think you're only here for another year. We won't see you around probably another year.
No, that's what elections are for.
That's right.
The Liberals' latest attempt stuttered in Northern Ontario Friday.
But there is a new dawn rising, where hard work is rewarded.
Today, a new Conservative campaign heralds Pierre Poliev as a champion of Labour, days after an NDP advertisement said the opposite.
Because he doesn't support unions. He doesn't actually support workers.
It's made labor disruptions increasingly political.
It's a line that was crossed when Justin Trudeau, for our Teamster brothers and sisters that were on strike, and he forced binding arbitration. That was wrong.
The fight for better wages was central in recent strikes at the BC Port, Metro, and Nestle. And it will be the focus again if Air Canada pilots walk off the job in mid-September. Like the rail stoppage, it could be an opportunity for another opposition attack against the Liberals.
They're being strategic about it and using their position as opposition to just kind of be that other person, that other option, when you might not like what the government has to do in terms of actually ruling the country.
Polling shows the economy and jobs are now the biggest issues for Canadians.
I feel crushed in terms of paying for the groceries and worried about paying for the cost of housing.
Poliev has taken notice, appearing at over 200 blue-collar job sites like steel mills, factories, and warehouses since becoming Conservative leader, and picking up support from traditional New Democrat voters along the way.
There's 20 seats out there that Stephen Harper didn't have access to for the decade he was Prime Minister that Pierre Poliev is going to.
If Air Canada pilots do strike, it could come one day after parliamentarians return to the House of Commons, putting wages and workers back in the political spotlight. Omar.
All right, Colton, thank you. The tug of war is turning ugly between federal civil servants and the federal government after it ordered them back into the office for a minimum of 3 days a week starting next week. Remote workers are resisting the loss of what has become a popular perk. And now the union representing those workers is fighting the mandate in court. Here's CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver.
Ottawa's downtown core is about to get busier. The frustrated workforce of public servants will return to the office 3 days a week.
I think we recognize that change is hard for people. So there are people that have worries.
The federal government says the change from 2 to 3 days a week for employees and a jump to 4 days a week for executives will help improve productivity, the public service's reputation, and result in better services for Canadians.
The motivation for that is really the importance of connecting people, building a culture within the public service so that we can deliver our services to Canadians.
They're upset about this.
The unions, however, disagree and are promising to continue protesting the mandate.
This is creating a problem when we already had a solution, and that solution was remote work. Because remote work works, it's the way of the future.
The federal government is just the latest and biggest organization to ramp up return to work. New data from Statistics Canada shows that 18.7% of people are still working mostly from home. That's down from 24.3% in May 2021. Pre-pandemic, though, only 7.1% of people worked primarily from their home office. While many workplaces say a return to a more pre-pandemic work environment is good for productivity, employees are mixed.
The more often individuals come into the office, they're starting to break or make new habits and falling into a really nice routine and actually quite enjoy it.
Workplace experts say that a hybrid work model is here to stay, but that how often an employee spends at home versus at work will be up to each individual organization's needs and culture. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
For millions of students across Canada, it's back to reality and back to the classroom. And as they return, for many, their first lesson will be on how to connect by disconnecting. CTV's Heather Wright explains.
Millions of kids across Canada are back in school this week, navigating new routines and new rules.
This is a new initiative. This is a culture change that's happening in our classrooms.
While the rules differ from province to province, school board to school board, most students are returning to classrooms with new policies regarding cell phone use. The hope that reducing or eliminating smartphones will result in increased engagement during class time.
In schools that have banned phones, that's one of the things students tend to report, is that after a few weeks, they'll say, yeah, I'm able to focus more in class, I'm talking to my peers more.
But experts warn cell phone bans are not a panacea, and eliminating smartphones during the day may result in more screen time at night.
I would expect that as kids leave school at the end of the day and regain access to their phones, that they'll make up for lost time, which may not necessarily be in their best interest.
And that's why curtailing smartphone usage needs to be a community effort, according to experts. Not only do parents need to model healthy habits at home, they are being encouraged to coordinate with other parents to set rules within friend groups.
You see more groups of parents now exploring whether that's smartwatches or like flip phones or something like that, where you get some of the ability to communicate without the potential downsides.
Jurisdictions around the world have been implementing various types of smartphone policies for years. Those studies are mixed on whether outright bans actually work. What experts say many schools are missing is education on how to use cell phones responsibly.
The problem with the current wave of cell phone bans in schools is they speak only to the no, and they say nothing about best practices for incorporating technologies into the classrooms.
With many smartphone policies new for this school year, educators say this is just a start, with more changes likely to come in the future. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
We are hearing tonight from a passenger stuck on a Via Rail train for 10 hours for a journey that typically takes around 3, leading to tense and frustrating moments on board without adequate food, water, or access to a toilet. CTV's Olivia O'Malley on the ordeal.
The train from Montreal to Quebec City normally takes about 3 hours. A quick journey for Rudy Elmegariki and his sister while she visits Canada. Instead, delays left the siblings stranded for more than 10 hours.
So she came to enjoy and relax. That was not a relaxing trip.
Elmegariki boarded the Via Rail train at 8:30 Saturday morning. Around 11, he says it broke down just shy of its final destination. Via Rail says the train experienced mechanical issues. While they were stuck, passengers say there was no electricity for about 90 minutes.
They stopped the air conditioning on and off. When they stopped the air conditioning, the washrooms don't work, so we couldn't use the washroom.
As time went on, tensions escalated. A Via Rail employee appears to snatch a client's phone out of his hands. The company says it's investigating.
At that time, we started losing our patience. I mean, we've been 8 hours on the train. People had diabetes, people were angry, people older, people babies.
Via Rail says passengers were offered drinks, snacks, and a meal. Elmegariki argues by then they had run out of everything. Finally, around 9 p.m., the fire department was called to help transfer passengers to another train. By the time it pulled into Quebec City, Elmegariki had been traveling for nearly 14 hours. On X, Canada's transport minister said passengers deserve better. Pablo Rodriguez added that he's meeting with Via's leadership this week.
For more information.
Via Rail says it offers its deepest apologies for the inconvenience caused. Impacted passengers will be given a full refund. Elmegariki says it's not enough.
I doubt if I will take Via Rail anymore. I will drive 6 hours. I will fly with airlines. I will pay more money to get a better service.
In the meantime, Elmegariki already booked his return ticket to Montreal. He just hopes the journey home will stay on track. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Montreal.
Coming up, relief at the pumps.
Everybody is enjoying these lower prices.
The lowest in months. How long will they last? You may have noticed it's costing you less to fill up your car lately. In fact, prices are at a 5-month low. CTV's Christina Tenalia on how long that relief at the pumps could last.
Matthew Albert works for the family business.
On average, we spend about $12,000 a month on diesel.
Over the summer, he's noticed the savings at the pump.
It would be a pretty penny, at least a few $1,000.
In savings?
On savings, yeah.
Ahead of the long weekend, this Edmonton driver was pleasantly surprised, despite gas prices in Alberta not dipping as low as other provinces.
They usually go up on the long weekend. I'll take it because every cent saved saves me money.
It doesn't matter where you are across the country. Everybody is enjoying these lower prices.
Gas price expert Dan McTagg says consumers are paying about $1.53 a liter at many stations across the country, a savings of about 20 to 26 cents a liter from this time last year, depending on where you live. The downward trend in prices began in about late spring.
Over a few weeks, the savings can certainly add up. A driver pumping anywhere from 60 to 80 liters a week would have seen a savings of about $10 a week throughout the summer.
I would estimate that this summer we've probably saved about $200 to $300, and it's left many consumers with a little bit more money in their pockets.
And there's likely more savings to come. Stations are getting ready to shed their summer gasoline supply. By mid-month, they swap to a winter blend, cheaper by about 8 cents a liter. The change in season won't benefit those who use diesel, which is connected to home heating fuel.
Farmers, mining, agriculture, etc. All of those industries could see an increase in the price very comfortably.
Imran Ghani just returned to Toronto from the U.S. He benefited from cheaper prices.
Definitely it helps in summer, right? Because you plan long drives in summer. It makes a huge difference.
It's been a blessing in disguise, and I think we should treat it as that and maintain that positiveness that maybe things will continue, at least in the foreseeable future.
The savings trend is expected to continue for about another 2 weeks, barring any major geopolitical event that could disrupt supply. Christina Tenalia, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead. Concerns for teen athletes after several deaths in the U.S. Canada made its first golden wave at the Paralympic Games in Paris, and it came in the pool. Swimmer Nicholas Bennett of Parksville, BC, captured the gold in the 100-meter breaststroke, and wheelchair racer Austin Smink from Oakville, Ontario, took home bronze in his event. Winnipeg's Leanne Taylor also got a bronze in the women's wheelchair triathlon, bringing Canada's tally to 11 medals at the Games so far. The devastating losses of young athletes on the football field has renewed concerns about safety in sport. And while multiple deaths are raising red flags in the U.S., there are also concerns here in Canada. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
7 young football players recently died in the U.S., and St. Mary's Huskies head coach Steve Samara has several questions.
How were people practicing? What were people doing? What was the temperature?
Football is a physical and mental grind. This year's Huskies training camp was a test of attrition.
We were here at 9 a.m. and we'd end at 9 p.m.
But not all on the field. Camp included weight room and classroom activities. Samara says this program has adopted a safety-first mentality.
Even if you watch a practice, you'll understand, like, it's not just two people running into each other.
Based on data from the National Center for Catastrophic Sport Injury Research, 16 U.S. football players died in 2023, ranging from youth league to college age. 13 were related to football activities. The father of an 8th grader who died from brain trauma in a football game last month says his son's death should be a wake-up call for the sport.
I just think we need to maybe put more safety measures out there to protect our kids.
Former Football Canada president Richard McLean says compared to when he played more than 30 years ago, the game is much safer.
The amount of contact, the two-a-days, the physical exertion, the running without breaks,
going 2.5 hours with not a water break. Those things don't happen anymore.
But Richard McLean also thinks there is still much more that needs to be done, including education and safety training for players, coaches, and officials.
We have to now put the money into the sport that's needed to be safer.
McLean also wants more rest time for players during games, especially in hot weather. It's a move he believes could steer the sport away from injuries and possible tragedies. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
After the break.
It was unlike something we would typically see on a day-to-day. You don't see an animal that's been shot every single day.
The remarkable orange tabby on the mend thanks to a Canadian community's help. Marmalade, a young tabby, is not quite on his 9th life, but those around him know he is lucky to be alive. The animal was shot by projectiles typically used for hunting. After a rescue, the animal is scheduled for critical surgery tomorrow. And as CTV's Hannah Schmidt reports, the entire community is rallying behind their feline survivor.
And he's just so sweet.
Marmalade, a young orange tabby cat, is on the mend after enduring what animal rescuers believe was a grim and painful experience.
I did the x-ray and we all just were staring at it because it was unlike something we would typically see on a day-to-day. You don't see an animal that's been shot every single day.
Dorset Rescue Kittens was contacted by a concerned community member just before the Labor Day long weekend about an injured cat in a Cambridge neighborhood.
My colleague was cleaning up his paw, which was at the time pretty much from his elbow down to his claws, was completely covered in blood and pus that had been kind of building up over the course of probably 7 to 10 days.
Veterinarians confirming Marmalade's injuries were from a buckshot wound.
Essentially, when you look at an x-ray, metal fragments are like a very bright white. They have a very different look than any other thing that you would find in the body. And I was like, what is that? And my vet immediately said buckshot. And my jaw just dropped.
According to the rescue, the best chance for Marmalade's recovery and overall health is for his front left leg to be amputated.
Essentially, the bullet likely went through his arm, shattering all of his wrist bones.
Marmalade's surgery is set for the Tuesday following the long weekend. In the meantime, the rescue is hoping to raise some funds for his medical bills and long-term recovery.
I estimate that his care will be between $6,000 and $10,000. We're definitely looking for a little bit more support from the community just so that we know that we can provide him with absolutely everything that he needs.
Oh, I love him. It'll be a long road to recovery, but Seymour says the rescue will help him on his journey to adapt to his new life on 3 legs.
So I think this will probably be a 2 to 3 month journey for him, get him healed from his leg amputation. So long term, hopefully we'll be finding him a great home. Who wouldn't love a cat like this?
Hannah Schmidt, CTV News, Cambridge.
That is one courageous cat. And that's a snapshot of this Labor Day Monday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.